The roof of the world, a realm of mystery, the Himalayas, a place where the earth meets the sky and the air is thin and crisp. Here, the mountains stand as silent sentinels, guarding secrets that have been hidden for millennia. Towering peaks pierce the sky, their jagged edges cutting through the clouds. These majestic giants have witnessed the passage of time, standing tall through the ages. Glaciers carve through ancient rock, slowly but relentlessly shaping the landscape. These rivers of ice are the lifeblood of the mountains, feeding the rivers that flow into the valleys below. A sense of awe, but also of mystery, hangs heavy in the air. The mist rolls over the slopes, obscuring the path ahead and adding to the enigma of this place. For centuries, tales have been whispered of creatures beyond imagination. Around the fires in ancient villages, elders recount stories of beings that defy explanation. Creatures that stalk the icy heights and roam the hidden valleys. Footprints in the snow, leading into the unknown, hint at their presence. These are the stories of the Himalayas, where reality blends with legend and the unknown beckons us ever closer. These mountains hold secrets waiting to be uncovered by those brave enough to seek them. Secrets whispered on the wind, etched in ancient texts and held in the hearts of mountain people. The wisdom of the ages is passed down through generations, preserving the mysteries of the past. Join me now as we journey into the heart of the Himalayas to explore the unsolved sightings of its most mysterious inhabitants. Together we will uncover the stories that have been hidden in the shadows and perhaps find answers to the questions that have long eluded us. Sighting 1, told by Charles Howard Berry, Tibet, 1920s. Charles Howard Berry, leader of the 1921 Everest reconnaissance expedition, encountered something strange while crossing the Lakpa La Pass at 21,000 feet. Known for his methodical observations, Howard Berry recorded seeing a peculiar set of tracks in the snow that resembled a human foot. His Sherpa porters, however, were quick to identify them as belonging to the wild man of the snows, the Meadow Kangmi. Though Howard Berry suspected the tracks were likely made by a wolf, the Sherpas were adamant. This wasn't just any animal, it was the Yeti. His careful diary entries note that even though the tracks seemed to match those of a large wolf, the legend of the wild man persisted among the locals, leaving the mystery unsolved. Sighting 2, William Hugh Knight, Tibet, 1888. Explorer William Hugh Knight added his own account to the growing pile of Yeti sightings after the reports made by Charles Howard Berry's expedition. Knight claimed to have seen one of these wild men up close in 1888. Describing it as nearly 6 feet tall, the creature appeared to be naked despite the freezing cold of November. Its skin was a pale yellow, with a thick mop of matted hair on its head and large muscular limbs. Knight noted its hands were large and formidable, and the creature seemed to carry a primitive bow. The sighting, while brief, left a lasting impression on Knight, who was convinced of its human-like yet primitive nature. The debate continues to this day. Sighting 3, William Hugh Knight, Tibet, 1888. Explorer William Hugh Knight added his own account to the growing pile of Yeti sightings after the reports made by Charles Howard Berry's expedition. Knight claimed to have seen one of these wild men up close in 1888. Describing it as nearly 6 feet tall, the creature appeared to be naked despite the freezing cold of November. Its skin was a pale yellow, with a thick mop of matted hair on its head and large muscular limbs. Knight noted its hands were large and formidable, and the creature seemed to carry a primitive bow. The sighting, while brief, left a lasting impression on Knight, who was convinced of its human-like yet primitive nature. The Migo Guardians of the Sacred Peaks. In the shadow of Mount Kanchenjunga, the third highest mountain in the world, dwells the Migo. This elusive creature is not just a figment of folklore, but a revered guardian of these sacred peaks. This creature, revered by the local Limbu people, is said to be the protector of the mountain and its surroundings. The Limbu people, with their rich cultural heritage, have passed down tales of the Migo through generations, each story adding to the mystique of this guardian. Unlike the fearsome Yeti or Menchi, the Migo is seen as a benevolent being. It is believed to live in harmony with the natural world, embodying the spirit of the mountains and the forest. It is said to possess mystical powers. These powers are not just limited to physical strength, but extend to a deep spiritual connection with the land. Local stories tell of the Migo guiding lost travelers to safety and protecting villagers from harm. These tales are not just stories, but are considered real-life accounts by those who have experienced the Migo's presence. Sightings are rare and often accompanied by a sense of peace and awe. Those who claim to have seen the Migo describe an overwhelming feeling of tranquility and protection. The Migo, a symbol of harmony between nature and humanity, adds another layer of intrigue to the already rich tapestry of Himalayan mysteries. Its presence is a reminder of the deep connection between the people and the land, a bond that has been nurtured over centuries. Sighting 4. Sonam Sherpa, Nepal, 1960s. I've often heard stories from Sherpas during my climbs. Tales of family yaks being attacked and herders driven to terror by a creature they believe to be the massive Dzute. One particular account sticks with me. In 1986, while visiting Namche Bazaar, the bustling hub of the Khumbu region, I met an old herder named Sonam Sherpa. 20 years earlier, Sonam had been tending to his herd of Dzo, a yak-cow hybrid, high up on the mountain pastures. One night, he and his companions were forced to take shelter in a cave, trembling as loud whistling and eerie bellowing filled the night. The men were sure the Dzute was out there hunting them after finishing off their livestock. Come morning, their fears were realized. 2 DCO were missing, and what they found was horrifying. No remains, no bones, just blood, dung, and the shredded intestines of the animals. Whatever took them left nothing behind. Sighting 5. Brian Hutton, Hodson, Nepal, 1830s. The first Western account of a wild man in the Himalayas comes from 1832, courtesy of Brian Houghton Hodgson, the British resident in Nepal. Hodgson, well versed in the natural history of the region, documented an encounter his native hunters had while exploring the Nepalese wilderness. According to Hodgson's report, the hunters had come face to face with what they described as a wild man. Terrified, they fled rather than shoot it, mistaking the creature for a demonic figure, possibly a Kokodaman or Rakshas. Hodgson doubted their story, but noted they claimed the creature walked upright, was covered in long dark hair, and had no tail. While Hodgson suggested it might have been an orangutan, he expressed doubts about his hunter's accuracy, leaving the identity of the creature a mystery. Sighting 6. Plenny the Elder, circa 300 BC, India. In 326 BC, during Alexander the Great's campaign in India, he heard rumors of strange wild men who roamed the snowy mountains, said to resemble the satyrs of Greek mythology, half man, half beast. Intrigued, Alexander demanded to see one of these creatures, but the locals claimed they couldn't survive at lower altitudes. Years later, Plenny the Elder would write about these creatures in his. He described them as beings from the mountains east of India, incredibly swift and capable of moving on both 2 legs and 4. According to Pliny, they were human-like in shape, but so fast they could only be caught when sick or old, adding to their elusive nature. Sighting 7. Major Lawrence Wadell, Northern India, circa 1889. In 1889, Major Lawrence Wadell, a British explorer and scholar, recorded what is considered the first Western sighting of Yeti footprints. While on an expedition in northeast Sikkim, his party stumbled across a set of large tracks in the snow. His servants were convinced the footprints belonged to a Yeti, a dangerous beast said to prey on humans. The tracks led up towards the higher peaks, and though Wadell's initial inquiry among the local Tibetans always ended in hearsay, the belief in these hairy wild men was widespread. Wadell, however, was skeptical, attributing the footprints to a large carnivorous snow bear known to attack yaks. Despite the superstitions of the locals, Wadell remained unconvinced that the Yeti was anything more than a legend born out of fear and the mysteries of the high mountains. Sighting 8. Major Bill Tilman, Northern India, 1937. In 1937, during a climbing expedition in northern India, Major Bill Tilman and his team came across tracks they believed belonged to the abominable snowman. The prints were 8 inches wide, spaced 18 inches apart, and formed a nearly straight line, an oddity for a 4-legged creature. Tilman speculated that the tracks, though altered by melting, could only have been made by something heavy. His Sherpa guides believed the tracks belonged to a smaller variety of Yeti, one known to feed on humans. Tilman's dry humor, as he joked about how hungry the creature must be, did little to ease the Sherpa's unease, adding to the strange and eerie nature of the encounter. Sighting 9. Eric Shipton, Mount Everest, 1951. While exploring a glacier in the Menlung Basin at around 19,000 feet, Eric Shipton and his team came across curious footprints in the snow. These tracks, which they followed for a mile, were well preserved, showing distinct impressions of toes and a broad thumb-like mark to the side. Shipton's Sherpa companion, Sen Tenzing, had no doubt that the tracks belonged to a Yeti or wild man. Tenzing claimed to have seen one up close a few years prior and described the creature as half man, half beast, with reddish-brown hair and a pointed head. Shipton's report generated widespread interest, though he admitted that following the tracks further was impractical due to the rugged terrain. Sighting 9. Colonel John Hunt, Everest, 1950s. During the 1953 British expedition to Everest, Colonel John Hunt had a fascinating conversation with a monk at the Tiangboch Monastery. The monk recounted a wintertime visit from a Yeti which had appeared in the snow-covered meadow below the monastery. According to the monk, the Yeti ambled about, sometimes on 2 legs and sometimes on 4, playing in the snow before being scared off by the blowing of conch shells and horns. The description of the creature, about 5 feet tall, covered in gray hair, matched what other eyewitnesses had reported, adding another layer to the Yeti's elusive reputation. Sighting 10. Don Willans, Annapurna, Nepal, 1970. In 1970, climber Don Willans was on an expedition to Annapurna when he spotted something unusual near his camp. Through binoculars, Willans watched an ape-like creature bounding along on all 4s in the bright moonlight. He estimated that the creature was about a quarter mile away and observed it for a full 20 minutes. The next morning, Willans found his stash of Mars bars missing, further fueling his belief that what he had seen was no ordinary animal. Though his Sherpa companions remained tight-lipped, he was convinced they knew more about the creature than they let on, perhaps believing the Yeti was a sacred being best left alone. The search continues. The mystery of the Himalayan creatures continues. Expeditions will be mounted, stories will be told, theories will be debated, yet the truth may remain elusive, hidden amongst the towering peaks and shrouded in the mists of time. And perhaps that is part of the allure. For in a world increasingly dominated by technology and certainty, the unknown holds a certain power. It reminds us that there are still wonders to be discovered and mysteries to unravel. The search continues in the Himalayas with all their secrets that patiently await. And there you have it. Tales from the high mountains where the line between myth and reality meet. From Sonam Sherpa's terrifying night in the 1960s to Plenny the Elder's ancient accounts, these stories of the elusive Yeti continue to captivate us. Whether it's the mysterious footprints in the snow or the eerie howls in the night, the legend lives on, leaving us to wonder what might still be out there, hidden in the shadows. If you enjoyed these stories and want to hear more legends and mysteries from around the world, please don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps me grow and share even more incredible tales. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.